that's all that we were able to stand.
The first talker.
We got the hell out of there.
Yeah. Now,
I'm absolutely freaked out by this because
was the audience sucking it up?
Pretty much, yeah. There were a lot of knowing smiles and nodding.
Oh,
a lot.
How vomitous.
Plus, really, they knew who this guy was and where he was coming from when they invited him. It's clear that they did.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So,
and nobody else asked a question.
And nobody else asked a question, but then it had run over, so I'm not sure whether, he became so terrified by having an actual question that they broke it off, or whether it was because they were trying to get the next speaker on with his crap about fractals. But see, now I went into this having read their flyer, thinking, okay, these are people who are trying to accept both science and their religious beliefs, and they're willing to set aside ancient, mystical, superstitious wisdom in order to accept the findings of science. That's what I thought.
Right, that's what it said.
And so my question was going to be, well, what if science eventually just proved your God didn't exist? Then what, right? How committed are you to this, really? Only to discover they're not committed to that at all. As far as they're concerned, the way to make science and religion work together is to simply crap all over science.
Right, make it religion.
No, he didn't want to make science religion. He wanted to destroy science.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
He just said, you can't
to make it religion. Yeah.
You can't be verifying each other's experiments, conclusions by repeating the experiments. You can't be using logic because nobody likes that. You can't be, your science is no good because it changes all the time. All this crap dumped on science to just push it out of the way and let the religion through.
Yeah.
That's what I discovered was going on in this extremely liberal Christian church that's trying to bring science and religion together.
Right. And they want to start teaching this crap in school.
Yeah. And I had no idea that it would get this freaking crazy. And, check out the titles of the other presentations. This guy was not unusual in a way that he wanted to just, get rid of logic and reasoning and just mystify everything.
The reason that this church isn't considered is considered liberal is because all the speakers weren't talking about Jesus.
Apparently.
That's the only way in which it's liberal. They allow people to actually talk about spiritual wisdoms and things that aren't directly tied directly to Jesus. So
they're still involved in it.
So they're up for pseudoscience.
Matt?
This kind of goes back to what we've talked about before about fundamentalist Christians, liberal Christians, moderate Christians, whatever else, and how there's still a danger in the fact, number one, that they're still using the same book. But from my point of view, what we're seeing in a lot of these liberal churches, and what we're seeing here, and I hate to use one example as kind of an indictment of all of them, but in reality, they are still in the religious mindset, and they have rejected the fundamentalist branch of their church because they realize that that is an abomination, that this, we should not be supporting these ideas of stoning people and slavery and killing homosexuals and whatever else. And they're desperately searching for some way to justify their belief in this incredibly complex modern world, and so they'll have a bunch of speakers in. And it doesn't matter what those guys said, it doesn't matter what religion they were from, it doesn't matter what kind of frou-frou spiritual nonsense they spewed. Those people were going to lap it up as long as it didn't contradict what's fundamentally in their minds. As long as it allows them to maintain their beliefs, it's fine. And if it sounds like it makes sense and it feels good, then it must be good. And that's why, while I appreciate some liberal Christians who stand up for separation of church and state and who support evolutionary theory being taught in schools and all these other really good things, there's still a problem there. And that's because they're latched on to this mindset that has them compartmentalize their beliefs, not critically examine things, and it promotes the willingness to accept other nonsense that's thrown at them because they've got to keep that little safety zone.
In fairness, even though these people describe themselves as liberal Christians, they don't sound to me like the kind of people who would be champions of evolution. They don't sound like the Barry Lynn, Kenneth Miller category of Christians to me.
That amazed me. I think you're right. They don't, and that just floored me. I thought I was walking into a group of people who basically accepted science at face value and then said, well, in the odd little nooks and crannies where there's still room, we're going to have our spiritual beliefs.
Right. Now, fundamentalist Christians love to talk about how there's a culture war going on in the United States, and I always say, I don't want to be at war with you guys, but if you guys are out to destroy me, then yeah, we're at war, because you declare war on me. But I don't think the war is between people who believe in God and people who don't believe in God. I think the war is between people who think that knowing stuff is good and people who don't. Between people who basically want to advance the cause of humanity by coming up with ways in which our lives can be better, and people who would rather say those people are elitists and we should throw in the towel when it comes to knowing stuff, and you should just trust things that are spiritual wisdom.
Yeah.
Well,
just a second.
Go ahead.
Responding to something Matt said earlier, it does certainly look like what they are most of all is uncritical, right? They just they're entirely focused. And I'm taking this guy, this first one speaker that I was able to stand, as pretty representative of where they're coming from and what they want to hear. His attack on logic and saying basically people like that which sounds good, therefore that's what's important. Sounding good is important. I think that's where they're coming from. And the best interpretation I can make of all this is not, slightly better than my actual interpretation. I think actually they are engaged now in a campaign to destroy science. A slightly better interpretation that I can almost see is they are simply completely full of shit and uncritical and not really trying to accomplish anything but merely immerse themselves in a sea of notions that sound good.
Right.
And
lies are designed to sound good.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was that Science and Wisdom's Alignment Project. There was no sign of any science.
No.
See, even the name includes a false premise. It assumes that science and wisdom aren't already aligned. That it's somehow unwise not to buy into science.
That was the first thing that came to mind when I heard that.
The premise was definitely, once I got there, the premise was clearly that religion's got the wisdom automatically by definition, and there'll be no discussion of that. And any time that people try to say there's wisdom coming out of science, they're wrong and bad.
I wonder if we could be a speaker.
And I'm feeling good.